Hey, it's Chris, Liege Games. So, we're talking about Ivion. Deck construction, hero, asymmetric, two-player, one versus one dueling game. This crowdfunding game is just ending. This one, right here, The Hound and the Hare, I have as a two-player set, actually from their last crowdfunding campaign. But let's talk about this for a second. Luminary Games is putting out this one-on-one dueler, and what do you need to know? Because, spoilers, this is like Magic the Gathering met Dice Throne? Sort of? Let's talk. So you may be wondering, well, Chris, why are you talking about this, right? You know me, right? I like talking about these style of games. Yomi, Exceed, Battlecon, Sakura Arms, Summoner Wars, all of those ilk. And so this is another iteration. And as I always say on crowdfunding, right? I see a dime a dozen of these. And I go, okay, well, what are you bringing new? What are you bringing to the table? And it's just that, right? The ease and the accessibility of Magic the Gathering minus all of the collecting and the money paying and just a pre-constructed deck that works. That's what it's bringing to the table. You know, it's also giving you, and this is where the difference lies, in more of the Summoner Wars-esque meets Magic the Gathering, you have your little miniature right here. So I'm placing it right here on the starting area in the lower right-hand corner, and there's one opposite. And you're making your way across this 4x4 grid, which is actually a kind of a cool grid in and of itself, because you don't realize this at first when you're playing, but these grids have circles, and they're the shape of one of these cards. And the cards fit perfectly in them because you will be playing cards to the terrain that will affect the terrain itself, sort of an Arakan Wars-esque Summoner Wars combination. And the nice thing about it is, for someone like myself, who does not deck construct normally, these decks are really pretty good. You get your 3 feats right here. That, you know, these are, you know, basically your passive abilities that make your character unique. That you're setting out in front of you on a turn-by-turn basis, looking at going, okay, Destiny, Godsend, and Oathbreaker. 3 passive abilities that are going to give me ways of mitigating, ways of playing, and emphasizing strategies that are going to come to me. You get your own little card of an intro deck that tells you what's all the deck, and then you get, you know, the 2 basic turn cards, which is whatever. And then you get the rest of the deck, and it's not all unique, but let me tell you, it's unique. This card play is very dynamic because it utilizes actions in the upper left-hand corner, if you can see there. And then you have in the upper right-hand corner the power that is either required or the power that you gain. And the tricky part is you may have the number of actions that are necessary. You may not have the power because some of these are going to take power to use and some of them are going to give you power depending on their strengths. Rinse and repeat. So 2 different types of currency that you can carry over round to round, but you can only maximize out at 5 each. So how do you mitigate things? How do you play that dynamic? And frankly speaking, it really, really works freaking well. So if you're looking for something like this that you can just throw onto the table and play and have a whole lot of strategic depth without being able to deck construct in the first place, because that is my Achilles heel, this is a great game for this. I was really surprised by this. My wife actually got into this more than Battlecon or Exceed. Now, the cards on the table, for example, whoops, I'm going to screw this up here. So if I put one of these cards on the table, like right here, so you can see it orange side up, usually it's face side up, you know, there's proximity. Like I had a card that was Vortex. It sucked a player in, and each time it did that, it did them 4 damage. And if they were within 2 spaces, they had to move 1 to it. I also had one that stunned them, which just caused them to lose a couple random resources. The biggest downside is there's just a lot of keywords that you're learning that aren't as explicit in this stuff, as well as the rule book. And that's the biggest criticism I have, is between the rule book and the other little symbols I'll put right here so you can see at the bottom of this. This little control panel right here. You've got green, blue, and red. This is what is called control. What this means is it's susceptible to not being played if you have any of these tokens that are affecting you. So if I want to play this card, I can't have any blue, any green, or any red affecting me. If I do, I have to get rid of those first using one of my resources to do so. And that's the neat mechanic. And some of them are more susceptible to others. Some of them are immune. So like the 2 on the top here, because they're all the same, the 2 on the top here are blacked out, as you can see, and the red one is the only one that is, you know, still highlighted. So this card can be played no matter what, as long as you meet the resource requirements along the top. as long as you don't have one of the red ones. And so therein lies the uniqueness of this, that sort of, okay, I have to take these things out of my way. And you're going to be doing a lot of these. This is not like a game where status effects are minimal. This is a game where status effects are constant, and you're having to mitigate between your actions, your power that you're collecting for the cards, as well as getting rid of the disabling status effects that you're dealing with. And this is just a 2-player one deck versus one deck. And that's probably the only other biggest criticism is for the price that it is. I wish that we had 4 characters in a box instead of 2, but I understand that the price point being what it is for an indie game as well makes that a little bit cost prohibitive. It just is really solid. Now, you get a whole other deck that comes with these. It's probably about 2/3 the size of any of these one-size decks for the characters that you can then customize after. And it literally has a card on it that says, do not open this until you've played a game, because you're not going to know what you're doing customizing it. So, yeah. And if the other ones, I mean, I have only Hound and Hare, so I can only speak to this, but I have a Paladin and I have an Illusionist. And the Paladin is really rough tumble, get up in your face, do heavy damage. The Illusionist is stack passive abilities and mitigate, picking them off with magic missiles and mind picks, so you're doing damages that only are 3 or 4 in every turn. But if you have 2 or 3 or 4 of those abilities stacked on you, all of a sudden, you can do 3 spells in a turn that should only do 3 damage each, all of a sudden do 8 damage each, and then all of my attacks get a passive ability that causes them to discard, and so it just stacks. It's a very unique, intuitive comboing system. And that's probably the other downside that I would just say is, as I mentioned at the beginning, right, I have these 3 passive cards, and these are easily identified because they have this back on them. These are the 3 that I start out with, right? When I was the Illusionist the last game, I had like 7 of these cards down towards the end of the game. So you're having to constantly juggle and remember. It wasn't overwhelming. If you're not a person that enjoys that much remembering in terms of passivity, it's something else. And, you're drawing from a random deck, so you're just probably not going to get the cards you want sometimes. But it's not as debilitatingly unable to play things as, I was just playing Pokemon TCG earlier with my kids, right? We couldn't draw energy for the life of us in both the games. One game him, one game me, and that debilitates your whole ability to play. And with their ever refilling actions and power with the cards and just a turn-by-turn basis, you don't run into that, which doesn't stalemate or stale in the mouth the taste of this game as well. So if you're looking for something that's along those lines, again, I would say I would probably want at least 4 characters just to have some rotation, or maybe a few more of the cards that would be into the deck construction to go with one of these base sets. Otherwise, this is impressive. This is impressive. I don't say that lightly. I say that as someone who loves Exceed. But this tickles in a slightly different way. And you know what? I'm okay with that. So, if you want, check it down below. I'll throw the link for the Kickstarter. But I mean, this was just a timing of the Kickstarter. I've had this one sitting on my shelf for probably like 6 months. But I saw the relaunch and I said, you know what? I need to get this played. And so that you guys can hear about it and check it out in time if you want to as well. So there you go. Those are my thoughts. That's all I got. Thanks for watching. Stay classy, short and sweet. Boom, there you go.